Here is the Flask 283, a comic that I got because I liked the cover. Like a true art school comic purchase, I liked the cover, so I got it. It is a really tremendous cover, and we should all take a second or two to appreciate the cover on display here. When you are done appreciating the cover, let's get started on this very, very dense issue. Right, this is the tail end of a big story arc on the Flask, where his girlfriend, Crystal, she was apparently murdered, but probably not, because she has been alive and well for the 4 decades that came after this. Barney Allen, the Flask, he gans on his cosmic treadmill, but it was a trap or something, and Yellow Flask is involved. One thing I truly respect about this is that it is almost unlike the other comics DC were putting out that year. This came out in 1979, and compared to the Justice League stories or the Superman stories they were publishing at the same time, this is proper serialized storytelling. This is something that isn't stuck in the 60s at all. There are continuing plots. There's character growth and development. There's a mystery that ran for about 10 issues. Very obvious from the second page that Yellow Flask killed her, but I do understand that is entirely as we recognise him now as Flask's arch-enemy. But I believe it was this story that actually set him up and established him as Flask's true arch-enemy. With all that praise about it being an ongoing story, I am coming in like 13 parts in, so I am basically a lost cause. They did do a collection of this recently. Gathering from the contents of that, this story started with issue 270, and it ends with the next issue. Oh, I can't forget, I found this bit hilarious. I laughed for at least 12 seconds. Utilising 25th century scientific know-how, I have devised a method of stabilising heroin so that it can be packaged and eaten when mixed with food products, like powdered milk, for example. Then down here, there's a bit that was obviously rewritten. The lettering style changes. But I think I love Yellow Flask. I think he is my new favourite villain. Here, he has gotten a woman and a plastic surgeon, and he wants to transform her into Crystal so that he can pretend he is fucking the real Crystal. This is my type of dastard. He is great. Truthfully, I didn't know much about Yellow Flask. Yellow Flask was dead for a lot of the Flask I have read. I unfortunately have read that Tom Queen one where he beats up Batman. Nobody's only experience with a character should be Tom Queen. I do know, though, that the one who Prattson got fucked up by is not this version. That was a lame duck copycat introduced by John Jeffries because he didn't think Willie West deserved the original. And then he brought Barney Allen back and so brought the original Yellow Flask back too. Really kind of fascinating character in this, though. He has these crazy schemes and petty agendas, and I love that. He basically wants to steal Flask's girl. That seems his only motivation, even. It's great. And then he spikes Barney Allen with angel dust. This is quality felonious doings. So, Yellow Flask, he killed Crystal because she rejected him. He vibrated his hand into her brain at super speed. I mentioned before how this book was, or has always seemed, in my opinion, better than a lot of what DC were putting out. And I want to get back to that because DC, they were not great in the Silver Age. They did fun comics, sure. They did some good stories, but they didn't do good books to read every month, I reckon. Compared to the innovation at Marvel with their Silver Age titles, DC were seriously lagging behind. At least on what one would think are the flagship DC titles. Superman, Justice League, Batman. The two Silver Age books that I consider to be the gems were The Flask and Green Lanterns. Ironically, the two books that were the weakest in terms of their respective lead characters. And also, weirdly, the two books that were revamps of Golden Age heroes. Barney Allen is boring, but if he had stayed dead, that would be it for my complaints on him as a character. But yeah, The Flask had stories that just seemed more impactful. Bad guys would make an impression and then they would come back. We had a rogues gallery that was nearly all colourful, unique characters. We had the introduction of the multiverse as well. Green Lanterns had a similar thing with actually decent villains and world building and continuity. I have read a lot of Silver Age Green Lanterns, if not all of it, and I have read bits and pieces of The Flask. Those two books, and Dome People, if you want to add a third, they were the best Silver Age DC books, and I don't think there is much contest to be had. And even after the Silver Age, in the 70s and the 80s, those books were doing stuff like this. And even just comparing this issue to some of Gary Conman's completely passionless, repetitive, rinse and repeat Justice League stories, it feels dramatically unfair. We have built up to a Flask versus Yellow Flask showdown. Fun stuff indeed. And the Flask is ready to send Yellow Flask Back to the Future, where he will be given the death penalty. But Yellow Flask's time machine is booby-trapped, and if anyone else tries to use it, then it'll go back in time and self-destruct. The Flask leaves the time machine and enters the time stream, while Yellow Flask stays on board and is left to perish by travelling back to a time before time when nothing exists. I definitely recommend this. This issue was lots of fun to read, and I am keen to read more. I am also intrigued by how they are going to undo Crystal's death. Surely Barney Allen, he is going to travel through time in the next issue, and he'll be able to stop it. It seems quite obvious, really. I want there to be a reveal one day that maybe the Crystal we have been reading about ever since this issue is actually that doped up actress woman Yellow Flask was having transformed to look like her. Obviously, I am joking. That would be a horrible retcon and twist. Don't do it, Kurt. I'm giving this 7 thumbs up.